let's jump right in. I want to start with some opening thoughts. I recognize that for many of us, and I was certainly one of those up until a few years back, statistics can be a daunting topic. I'm hoping that the morning today will help make it a little more favorable and less daunting for you. So let me share with you a few of my kind of opening thoughts about statistics, just so you know where I'm coming from and where I'd like to take all of us along. So the first is that I consider statistics are a means to an end and not an end in itself. And that essentially I view statistics as a set of tools that are meant to address necessary research tasks. And for each of those tasks, we have a different statistical tool, and we'll talk about many of them in the next few hours of this symposium. And just to highlight, the symposium or the seminar is really intended to enable you to become a more knowledgeable and critical statistical consumer. If it helps any of you become a more statistical doer, that's great, but certainly that's not one of the primary motivations. Let me also kind of outline, in my mind, even though there's a myriad of statistical tests and approaches, I think all of these can be broken down, in my mind, to four main tasks of statistics. And in fact, in this web seminar, we're going to cover the first three. And those are statistical tools that enable us to describe or summarize a set of data, so-called data reduction tools. The second is tools that allow us to estimate how close a given result might be to the true underlying value, or give us an ability to be able to assess the level of precision of a measurement. And the third one that we'll cover today is to be able to estimate the probability that random variation, or often called chance or bad luck, might be a reasonable explanation for the observed results. So this is what's carried out with kind of classic inferential statistics, and later on in the seminar we're going to carry out a process that's analogous to an unpaired t-test to look at a study scenario and its results. And the fourth main task is to be able to estimate the sample size needed or the statistical power achieved for a given study. And again, that fourth task of statistics we won't be covering today, but the other three we will. So in my mind, you know, it's this list of four things that are really the only four things that statistics do. Now, when I say only, still leaves for a pretty powerful tool set. So the learning objectives I think you've already seen, but here they are summarized again. So we're hoping that by the end of the seminar you'll be able to recognize and interpret descriptive statistics, be able to summarize continuous data with appropriate descriptive statistics, be able to interpret confidence intervals and explain how they're calculated, be able to interpret p-values and explain the concepts behind hypothesis testing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be using, in fact, a variant of students' t-test, the paired students' t-test as an example. Be able to employ statistical terms as they're used in clinical research, and certainly become more comfortable communicating with the statisticians that you might work with. So let's begin by just thinking about an example research study. And if we imagine that researchers wish to study various aspects of a cardiac rehab program. So one of the baseline measures that they wish to determine is the average heart rate of participants at the start of a cardiac rehab session. So let's take a minute and think to ourselves, okay, how could and would this study be carried out? So there's a number of things that we need, and they're all kind of suggested in those first two statements. I mean, clearly we need to be able to find one or more cardiac rehab programs that we can partner with. Now, it sounds like this research project is probably being initiated within a cardiac rehab program. The second is we're going to need a group of eligible participants to be able to be approached and told about the study and asked if they would be willing to participate in the study, and give informed consent to be participants. And then once we have that group of individuals, we're going to need to be able to, for each one of them, be able to measure their heart rate at a given, and we're told that that given time is a heart rate at the beginning of a cardiac rehab session.